I wanted to ask about the feeling of being a doer. Although we have the sense of we need to attend the external world and to do action, the very feeling or sense that I'm doer is considered to be psychological only, and then I should separate the action from the sense or the thought that I am doing it. So the sense or the thought that I'm doing it should be considered only psychological and treat it as just happening in a way.
The doer is always in the psychological world. No way it is not in the external world. Whether it is related to the external work or psychological world, the doer is always in the psychological world. But at the same time, if it is related to the external world, we can justify the existence of the doer. But we cannot justify the existence of the doer if it is related to the psychological work. For example, I want to be free from sorrow, I want to be free from worries or anything, then it is not justified. Because in the psychological world, no work is there. So when there is no work, the doer is not necessary. But in spite of your understandings, the occurrence of the formation of doer, we have to consider it is unconscious happening. Because we are not consciously establishing the doer in the psychological world. Because we understood that no necessary to do anything. But in spite of our understanding, if the doer comes, we need not worry about that. We have to take it as an unconscious happening. Just like the other emotion, the feeling of doer is also a kind of emotion. Just like other emotion, it is also a kind of emotion. But in relationship to the external world, external work, the doer is a must. Without the doer, no work is possible. So we have to have the doer. That is a necessity.
Can it be an action without the real doer? Because again, action also happens, but the fact that I attribute it to a doer is related to psychological. So maybe just a semantic of how we look at it.
Because we feel the doer only psychologically. Okay, so psychologically alone we can feel the doer. So it is justified. If it is related to the external world, it is justified. Doesn't matter. I'm saying that there should not be any doer, whether it is related to the external world or psychological world. No doer must be there. So we have to do everything without the doer. So it is impossible. Even though you are trying to behave like that, some doer will be there unconsciously. Consciously or unconsciously, some doer will be there. It's inevitable.
Also changes according to the situation and according to the actions that he performs. He is not a kind of a established kind of. He also keeps moving and changing because he is a part of the psychological aspect. How does that process work right now?
As it is purely psychological, the psychological things always new moment by moment. It is inevitable. So each and every moment, new feeling alone can come, new emotion alone can come. But physically, it may not be so. So psychologically, whatever comes in the psychological world, new thing alone can become. So there is no world, there cannot be any world. So each and every moment, even though you think the I am is permanent one, what exists in the previous moment is also continuing in this present moment also. You may think like that, you may presume like that, but it is not the reality. It may look like that, but it is each and every moment new high consciousness alone has to come. That is the natural law. We cannot interfere with the law. It is functioning like that.
So the doer also changes because he is a part of that I consciousness.
I consciousness. Because everything is psychological. Whatever is in the psychological world, it has to be in the same manner. Each and every moment it must be new. Because it is only a reaction, it is not an action. So it is related to some other thing. So it is a reaction. The reaction has to come again and again, and in a new, each and every moment it takes a new reaction. The reaction cannot exist for itself. But we think the I consciousness exists forever. But that is not so.
When I ask about the fearlessness, and you answered that there is you get to this state which everything just appear and disappear immediately, then even the sense of fear, you cannot say it exists, because you cannot even say that there is fear in this moment, because it just comes and goes. And I wonder if it's the same for every emotion, or is even for physical pain, or is physical pain is different in that aspect. You understand what I'm asking? Yesterday, when I asked, I said that Krishnamurti talks a lot about fearlessness, and I asked you about it. And from what I understood from your answer, that there comes a point that every emotion just appear and immediately, immediately disappear. And then you cannot even say that fear is there. So my question is, it's the same also for pain, for example.
Physical pain.
Physical pain.
Actually, with the thing, if you, for example, we have some wound here, and we have some pain in the wound, we think it is a stable pain, without any constantly it is there. But if you watch it closely, then you can find it. It is moment by moment new.
Mm-hmm.
So the pain is not a constant one. It is some gap is there. Each and every moment some gap is there. So if you closely watch there, that gap can get wider. And pain gap. So in this way, but overall, when you look in a normal way, we think it is constantly it is there, but it is not constantly there. Each and every moment, new pain alone is coming. For example, when you take a candle, the light is there. We think the light is constantly having a flame. But even the constant flame has unnoticeable flickering there. So we are not aware of the flickering of the flame. But we think it is a constantly it is burning constantly. But even that also some flickering is there, some gap is there. But we are not noticing it. So in this way, each and the bodily pain is also having the same appearance. Each and every moment, new pain alone has to come. That is the nature of the pain. Even bodily pain is also functioning like that.
About posture correction, where there is a lot of physical pain, and you try to, let's say, remove the bad habits of slumping and keep straight. There are times that the pain is there, and you have to push to the pain, let's say, and some other times that you have to go along with the pain and adjust. So how, let's say, if I feel the pain, I start meditation and I rest the back, or I push more into it, sitting meditation and straightening up.
So for example, if you are sitting cross-legged and you will have some pain in the joints, are you asking whether you have to endure the pain?
Yes, there are some times that you have to punch the knife, let's say, to endure the pain and just stay there. And some other times, if you do that, it's like the intention to attain something. So it's the ego acting through you. So I'm talking specifically about physical pain on the posture, on the back posture.
So here, whenever we have some pain, some problem is there. So we have to give attention to that, to the necessary thing. For example, when we have a wound here, when I having the wound, something hits the wound itself, it will create more pain. So I have to keep my wound untouched by any other object. So I have to protect for that. So if you ignore the hitting of my phone with any object, it will create more pain and more disturbance to the wound, and the healing process will be very late. So we have to keep the thing, not creating more pain, more problem. So in this way, if you do any posture or anything, you have to manage. So sometimes, for example, you do some exercise, new exercise, or new posture or anything. After finishing the exercise or yoga, the next day you will have some bodily pain. So you have to, that is the reaction of the body. It will create like that. But for that, you will have to give some rest for that. But at the same time, the next day you may do the same thing. But in course of time, you will manage how to deal with the pain related to the exercise or yoga. So that is a different thing. But for that, all pain gives us to learn something about the thing. We have to learn something from the pain and do to the necessary thing. If it is related to the body pain, we have to do the necessary thing. But in the psychological world, it's different. Psychological world, there is no constant pain like this. There is no necessity to maintain or deal with any pain. In the psychological world, we have to give total freedom to everything. When we give total freedom to everything, it will be all right on its own.
What do you mean total freedom? What do you mean total freedom?
Have you not heard any? Have you read any of my books or anything?
No.
No. Originally you are from Western countries or
Yes.
India? Which country?
Western country.
Which country?
Cyprus.
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 Which mean that
Cyprus, Europe.
European country.
Native language, mother tongue is English or some other language? Greek. Today you may take one book and you can read, if you want you can retain or you can read and return. So then only you can have some idea. Otherwise I'll have to give you a long lecture what I am going to confer.
Yeah, just, freedom. When you say freedom in the psychological world, it means that you introduce the discipline or you go along with the feeling.
So going along with the feeling is necessary to the external world. So then only you can make use of the emotion to the circumstances. But the emotion itself is not neither good nor bad. So it is just a reaction. All emotions are just a reaction. You need not worry about the reaction. So the reaction is a momentary one. We need not separate any emotion. It is coming and disappearing. You have to give chance for the disappearance. If you catch hold of anything to separate, the trying to separate is the problem. So psychologically, we have to understand there is no work on our part. So if you think we have some work in the psychological world, you have to do it again and again, that itself creates more problem. So psychologically, there should not be any work on our part. So the psychological world is concerned, freedom alone is the rule of law. There cannot be any work. So the work or discipline, getting something, driving away something, everything is related to the external world, not related to the psychological world. Psychological world must be a natural world, where no rule of law must be there. It must be natural. Whatever comes must come and go on its own way. We have no interference, we have no part on the psychological world.
A little bit to more detail about the difference between a belief that we have, a conclusion that we come to, and the understanding. Like, what is the relation between all this? Is the understanding a belief that, in a sense, we came to a conclusion, and in what moment we came to a conclusion, it is an understanding now. And still, if the doubts come, or some other, if we decide to believe in something else and it becomes something which contradicts this understanding, then understanding will shift to something else and we'll come to a new conclusion. So, if we can explain again this difference, and is the understanding a conclusion, basically?
So here we have understood that no work is necessary in the psychological world. So we do not know whether it is correct or not. But we may rely upon the words of somebody. He says that no work is there. We may have some reference. As a reference we can take, but it is not our idea, our understanding. But we can refer. It may be like that, it may not be like that. As a test you can take. So to that extent we can take it as a belief, because we do not know it. Somebody said like that, I do not know, I don't have any idea about that. But anyhow, I take it into account. So it can be considered as a belief. But whenever we test it for ourselves, we verify the details for our action, for our own experience, then we find it is working. When it is working, so it is your understanding. So it becomes understanding. It is not an idea. So it is an understanding. Idea is, it is not without verification, it may be an idea. But when we verify this fact, it becomes a fact or understanding. And it is not a belief. So belief is, on our part, I have no idea about that. But we are not against that. Yet we are giving time or giving chance for the experimentation. And if you take it into account for experimentation, then in that case we can take it as a belief. So if we reject the idea itself, then it cannot be considered as a belief. When for the time being we take it for verification, so then it can be taken as belief.
But the mind functioning, whether it's because it's just a belief or whether it's because it's a conclusion or understanding, it will be the same. If I take it as this idea, as whether it's as a belief or as a conclusion, but I decide to adopt it, the mind will function by itself according to this belief or according to this understanding. Correct?
Here, Sometimes you may verify in a given situation, and in that situation it may work correctly. So, to that extent you may rely upon the understanding, but it is not a conclusive understanding. But anyhow, you verify to a certain extent, and it is working. So, for a limited sense, you accept the thing as understanding. You, to a limited sense, you take it as a fact. But it may not be absolute fact. It may not be successful in all circumstances. But if you are given circumstances alone, it is working. So to that extent, you may take it. But whenever you are taking as a conclusive aspect, it may take some time, because you can have to have some verification with related to many philosophy or many ideas, and all ideas, all philosophies are merging here. So it may take some time. So then only we can take it as a conclusive understanding. But that conclusive understanding is not at all necessary. Because we are in the available, with is working with the available fact, it is okay for us. It also working, there are some working position, working capacity. To that extent we can understand like that. So we can rely upon that thing for certain, that itself is enough. But conclusive understanding may take some more time. Conclusive understanding, we should not imagine this a deeper understanding. That is not a deeper understanding, is the superficial. But conclusive understanding means we are keeping it undisturbed with the other school of thought or anything. And we can find out all school of thought are related in the same way. In some way or other, it is related to this understanding. So then we are having some conclusion, we include everything within the understanding.
Yeah, otherwise you're trying to understand.
Experience also, I find that as days go by, I find that this understanding is all inclusive. It completely embraces other schools of thoughts from other masters, and in your books also you have referred to other masters like Ramana Maharshi, J.K., Nisargadatta Maharaj, how they came to this understanding, and it all points to the same thing here, and I find it to be absolutely amazing the way you put it, a few words on that.
So here, the main thing is that we should not have any work psychologically. Most of the masters are dealing with only psychological problems, not physical one. But the main thing is related to the psychological world. But in the psychological world is concerned, somebody may say everything is God, nothing but God. So if we take everything is God, that means we don't have any work. As everything is God, everything is done by God, then we don't have any work. So indirectly they say we should not have any work. But this purely mean to the psychological world, not to the physical world. If you mean the same to the physical world, will create more confusion. But if it is restricted ourselves, restricted to the idea of psychological factor, psychological world, it will be alright. Either you must feel there is no work in the psychological world. Otherwise, everything is done by God itself. The both are same. So here, in case of Nisargadatta or Ramana Maharishi, everybody is saying that everything is done by predetermined and no nothing to do. So if it is, but it is, we have to take it psychologically. Psychologically taking, it will all right. So the liberation has to come in the psychological world. So when we give total freedom to that, the psychological world will blossom and disappears and it will flow in. But if you take something in our hand, then we will disturb the natural flow of our mind. So actually, when we place everything in the hands of God, then we are not doing anything. So in their case also, you are giving total freedom to the natural functioning of our mind. So the natural functioning of the mind is the necessary thing. That is the deciding factor. For that, each school of thought aiming for that. And that is known as the liberation. And everybody is aiming for the liberation of the mind. And if you go through any way, the liberation will be there. But we have to come to the level of liberation. So if you stop yourself in the midway, it will not give you the liberation.
I guess I have a question about Atman awareness and choiceless awareness. And I noticed you have kind of like a list of all these things. I don't know if it's for you a list of priority in terms of what one starts to understand and develop.
So there is no order, it is written in a random way.
Randomly.
You can select anything.
Okay. So my question was whether choiceless awareness comes first or Atman awareness comes first, or does it's different for everybody?
You want to know something about Atma or awareness or choiceless awareness? Which name you prefer? So everything is same. Atma, awareness, choiceless awareness, everything is one.
Yes.
But only the name alone may be different. The basics thing is one.
Okay. So that's this question. To ask is often, teachers are making differences between, this awareness, that awareness, the observer, the witnesser, and all these things, and they make all these systems out of it. And while there may be subtle differences, I just was wondering if you had your own little different ways of looking at it, but you're saying that really they're just kind of words used.
Because we have enumerated all the words used by many persons, it is not my words. These are the words used in the spiritual world. So we enumerated all the words. We have borrowed many words from many persons. It is not my own word. So, but anyhow, the truth is behind all the words are same, but the words may be different. They may look different, but the basic structure may be one.
I want to ask about the quiet mind or the still mind that is being referred by many. And first, if I understand, the moment we aim for something like that, it itself creates the disturbance and interference in the psychological world. So it's not something that we should attain in any way. But if I understand correctly, the moment we have the understanding that there is no work and nothing internally to attain, then naturally this state eventually comes. And I wonder if this is, of course it's not a must and it doesn't really matter if it happens or if it not happens, but when it tends to happen is something that happens gradually within time, and again, if we talk in a matter of time, or is it something that suddenly change?
So here, the still mind means so the limited thoughts. So the wavering thoughts goes away, and we'll have the still mind. But the still mind, if you aim for the still mind, you have to meditate. You can tune yourself. You can. It is like just like a frozen mind.
Mm-hmm.
The frozen mind is not a correct mind. So the free mind is different from the frozen mind. The free mind is the necessary thing. So here you can create this still mind. Still mind is only through our work we can create this still mind. Thereby we can control our thoughts. We can keep ourselves without the fruit of fall, without the happening of thought. We can keep ourselves. But that is not good. So if you keep yourself, then you will go to the samadhi state or anything, and you can unaware of everything. So that is a different thing. But that is not the natural state. So it is a created state. So here, whatever comes is the natural. So the liberation is related to the natural state, not related to the created state.
I understand that, but still, if I refer to Krishnamurti, and I know Krishnamurti don't say you should practice and make your mind still, and he still uses the sense of this term of still mind or quiet mind. So what exactly he refers to?
So instead of using the word quiet mind, the liberated mind, the word liberated mind creates more sense. So he may use the word, but instead of using that word, if you use the word liberated mind, it will give more sense.
Mm.
Then it will be that is the highest thing.
Mm.
The liberated mind is the highest thing. The quiet mind, for some reason or other, we can have the quiet mind. So that is different. But in the liberated mind, you may have anything. You may have the good, bad, anything, because everything is related to the external world. Something good emotion is necessary, even bad emotions also necessary to deal with some external work. So here, when you are liberated, you can make use of everything in a positive way. So here, the liberated mind is the highest thing. But Krishnamurti may mean the liberated mind in the name of quiet mind. Mm-hmm. But the terminology is not suitable. If you name it as quiet mind, instead of naming it as quiet mind, you have to name it liberated mind. That is the correct terminology.
Liberated mind.
Liberated mind is our natural state of our mind. If you do not disturb the mind, it will be naturally disturbed, create liberated mind. We cannot create.
But it's impossible not to disturb it. I mean, we come in ignorance and, we create attachments.
So only because of ignorance, we are disturbing the liberated mind. So you have to understand. So you have to understand the role of yourself. So if you understand your role, then you will not disturb. So actually, we think we attach the ignorance, not doing anything. So we think if you understand something, we can do perfectly. So here, we are not doing, we did not do anything in a perfect way. So actually we have to understand no work is there. That alone you have to understand. But we think in common usage, if you have the better knowledge to do work, that alone is considered as knowing something, you are having some intelligence. If you are ignorant, we cannot do anything in a proper way. So here, not knowing anything alone is the correct. Actually, you have to admit your ignorance wholeheartedly. That is the greatest intelligence here. Psychological world is concerned, we must accept our foolishness totally. But we have to come to the conclusion in an intelligent way. That is, we have to work in all respect. Then only we can come to an intelligent conclusion that we are ignorant. When we are ignorant, we cannot do anything. So psychologically, we must accept your ignorance. Then only you will find no work there. So if you are intelligent to do something, you will actually going to disturb the natural functioning of the mind.
So when you say you have no work, you mean no effort? Not.
So the psychological world, the effort is the problem. But in the physical world and the external world, there must be work. Without work, nothing is possible. But
So in the case of pretty much all human beings, that they come in ignorance and they create attachments because they are ignorant. Let's say they create a gap between the truth and where they are. They create the ego. So with the ego, if I don't effort, the ego is still gonna be there because I'm attached to it.
so here in the external world is concerned, the rule is different. See, everything is different. There we can have some order. This has to be done, this should not be done. Some order must be there. But in the psychological world, if you try to create any order, try to create anything, that alone is a disorder. So here, we have to psychologically, we have to give total freedom to everything. We have to take the psychological world as a natural happening. So if you put the psychological world in the natural world, then the natural order will be there. So if you find something,
It seems impossible. If I don't effort, if I don't do work, the ego is gonna keep going.
so you,
Ramana Maharshi said that in the Who Am I, if in the beginning the effort is essential, you cannot stay with the I without effort in the beginning.
so even in the psychological world is concerned, if you have some effort, it is only for the beginners. But if you should not be always be as a beginner. So afterwards you have to understand no work is there. So you have to come to a conclusion to that. Before as a beginner you can do something. So otherwise you cannot understand the importance of non-doing something. So for the beginning you can do something, you can pray, you can meditate or anything, everything is related to the psychological world, you can do something. Then only you can have the understanding. If you finish all the work here, then you will find we cannot break the door open. So when you put your hand there, when you do not put your hand there, it will open naturally. So the psychological world must be natural world. No effort will open that door. Psychological world is concerned, you have to submit yourself. But doing something is not a submission. But in the external world, anything we can do something. But for the beginners, it is also, the work is justified. You can do some meditation, prayers, whatever thing you can do. You can ready, you can study, you can inquire, everything is advisable. That is only for the beginners. But afterwards you can put down everything. You have to be in the empty hand. You have to face your mind with the empty hand. You should not have anything in your hand.
Thank you.
Masters that had some kind of awakening. After this understanding or this realization, they went for a period of silence, a lot of time, and a lot of time of silence. And I wonder if you see any benefits in that, or you can understand why is the silence was needed, like after misunderstanding happened, what is the silence have any value?
So here, when you, many people, many masters do not separate the understanding and the liberation. They club both. Actually, the understanding is purely intellectual. It has no relationship with the emotion or anything. It will not have anything like thing. But what it is only a superficial understanding. But liberation is a different thing. Liberation is not related to intellectual matter. Liberation is the natural happening, natural functioning of our mind. And but it is understanding is related to the intellectual world. So, but intellectually we have to find out whether any work on our part is there or not. That we have to come to a conclusion. But if we understand no work is there on our part, so then we are not disturbing the natural functioning of our mind. But the natural functioning alone can be terminated as liberation or awakening. But here, the understanding part can be considered as understanding or enlightenment. So it is so purely intellectual. Many people, they join both. And if they join both, then we cannot have a clear idea about that. So here, after getting the understanding and when we allow the functioning of the mind in a natural way, sometimes we will have because when we allow the mind in a natural way, naturally we will have some immediate result from that. Sometimes they may result some bliss consciousness or some peace of mind or some silence. Anything may it will be revealed for some time only, but it will not be a permanent one. So for the time being it may reveal like this, but it doesn't matter. But because we understand correctly, no work is there, we need not worry about keeping anything permanently. So whatever comes, whether silence may come or anything may come or bliss consciousness may come, we don't worry about that. Whatever comes, that has to go away from that. But if you think the other day I have got a peace of mind, the other day I have got a blissful feeling, it has come and gone, I have to keep me always. If you think like that, then we are misunderstanding, we are creating the misunderstanding because we are thereby you are creating another work. So whatever comes, let it comes on its own way and let it go on its own way. We should not direct it. We should not give any direction to that. So our part is over to do the level of understanding. So whether we have any work or not, to that level, our understanding, our work is over. Afterward, it is natural. Then whatever may come, let it come. If it is not there, let it be not there. So we have to be there. We have to follow that way.
Let go of painful experiences, but sometimes a little bit of attachment comes to happy experiences, psychological experiences. So, how to let go of, completely let go of that, completely, how to have that kind of steadiness and strength of the intellect, to completely let go of even that area. Sometimes we find a little bit of an attachment. Yesterday it was beautiful. And is there a way? And so such thoughts come here.
So here we have some conscious understanding that we have no work. So unconsciously we may catch hold of something, we may fight against something. That let it happen on in the unconscious way, but don't do it consciously. That alone is the thing. If you understand, there is no conscious work on our part. That alone is enough.
That is enough here.
That enough. But even though you have a conscious conclusion that no work is there, and in spite of that, if you feel, if you have some unconscious work, For example, when we have some fear or sorrow, naturally we will have that reaction to be free from that. Let it be unconsciously. But we should not deliberately take it into our hand and do something against the sorrow or something. In the same way, if you have some peace of mind or some silence, and if you have the idea that I want to be always in the silence, let it be unconscious. Don't do it consciously.
Okay.
How to differentiate between the conscious mind and the unconscious mind? How to recognize it?
For example, the conscious mind, there may be many definitions, but according to me, we have subconscious mind and conscious mind. And in the conscious mind alone, there is some unconscious part and conscious part. So all thoughts come on its own, just like the happening, our thoughts. But our thinking is our conscious doing something. So the thought happens unconsciously. So that is the unconscious part. And the conscious part is our conscious thinking is conscious part. For example, you may have some fear, anger or sorrow, anything happens on its own. We are not creating it. It happens. The happening is unconscious. But when it happens, we conscious of that. It becomes conscious of that. So that is the conscious part. So that is in this way I am defining. So there may be many definitions in that way, but my definition is like this.
So when I am conscious about that fear or sorrow, am I putting some effort or am I being there as a detached person?
So here, the I am is also a kind of the thought. Without the thought, there is no I am. So the I am is also one the part of the thought. But we may think we are separate from thought, separate from anything. Here, even the I am is also happening as an unconscious one. After the happening of the I am, we feel it I am. Therefore, we are consciously aware of that. So here, in the first instance, everything happens as a unconscious one. In the second instance, we are conscious of that. So it comes one by one, alternatively. In the first instance, everything happens unconsciously. In the second instance, we are conscious of that. So whether it is in the form of emotion or it is in the form of eye consciousness, everything is same. In the first instance, it is unconscious, but in the second instance, we become conscious of that.
Somebody which is that I am that consciousness, maybe the pure consciousness. Is it a permanent state or it's changing from time to time?
Actually, the pure consciousness, but actually they mean only the awareness. The awareness is the base, that is the substratum, and we cannot be aware of the awareness. That is the nature of the awareness. But what we know is only our consciousness. The consciousness alone that we can feel. The consciousness is the product of the awareness. The awareness creates consciousness. Our consciousness is the expression of the awareness. For example, some fire is there, and if you touch the fire, immediately we feel the hot. And in the same way, when we touch the ice water, we feel cold. So here, what we know is not the fire itself. What we know is not the water itself. We have the reaction. The water creates some reaction in our hand, and fire creates some reaction in our hand. So we know only the reaction in our hand. So we feel something. We feel something, some consciousness. So the expression, that alone we feel. But if anybody asks, what is the nature of your hand? And we will not say the nature of our hand is hot, our nature of the hand is cold. But sometimes it is hot, sometimes it is cold. But the original state is not that. The original state is beyond hot and cold. It is the original state is a sensitivity. The sensitivity at one time becomes hot, the other time it is become cold. The sensitivity we cannot have any expression on its own, but it may express it in the form of hot or cold. But the original state of sensitivity is known as awareness. And the awareness we cannot feel. So when it expresses in the form of some consciousness, that alone we can feel. So it is way, even the I am, the feeling of I am is also a kind of consciousness. So it is not the reality. But everywhere the awareness is there. Only the awareness alone creates consciousness. When we feel I am, it is the expression of the awareness, but we don't feel the awareness. We feel only the expression of awareness. And in the expression of awareness, that is known as consciousness. Even the I am is also a kind of consciousness. Just like the hot, just like the cold, the I am is also a kind of expression. But the pure consciousness means the awareness behind all those things is the awareness. That alone we can consider as a pure one, because we cannot feel it. There is no separate or specific expression for the awareness itself. What we feel is only the consciousness. Nobody can feel the awareness. Awareness is the base of everything. But the awareness will not claim itself as I am or anything. It is in the form of silence. It is the pure sensitivity. In the scriptures we are known as chit. The chit is the pure sensitivity. And it expresses in the form of consciousness. Whether it is naming it as I am or anything, everything is one. Everything is the expression.
Still mind.
Still mind.
Still mind. Only sleepy mind. Still mind. And which sometimes we consider it as a silent mind. And the pure awareness. There is three states as we put it through our intelligence. But we must have, as you rightly said in the beginning, we must have the understanding, total understanding of the mind, consciousness and awareness.
We can infer the awareness. We cannot understand, we cannot feel the awareness. Awareness we cannot come across, but we can infer. But we can feel only the consciousness and the expression. Even we can, whenever we are in sleep, we cannot even know the sleep itself. We are unaware of the sleep itself. What we are knowing, only the conscious expression. The dream alone we can feel. The dream we can feel. The waking state we can feel. But we cannot feel the sleep. So in this way we cannot aware of the awareness itself. But the awareness is the basis of everything. But we cannot aware of that. We can infer. Something may be there behind everything. Something may be there as a substratum. That we can infer. As an inference alone we can feel we can infer like this, some awareness may be there. But we can feel, whatever we can feel is only the consciousness or in the dream. It is a happening. That alone we can have some reference. Otherwise, we cannot feel the sleep, we cannot feel the awareness. But we can infer.
as you rightly said, about the sensitivity. So we can feel the sensitivity.
But we think like that it is not, even the scriptures itself says that we cannot feel the Atman itself, but somebody claims to say we can feel the Atman. That is
So
impossible.
I am not telling about the Atman, about the sensitivity.
Sensitivity itself we cannot feel. Because whenever it is you are feeling something, it becomes a sensation.
Yes.
Then it is not a sensitivity. Sensitivity is the base, and the sensation is the expression of the sensitivity. What we can feel is only the expression, not the source. The source is the beginning, and the source expresses in the sensation. Sensation we can feel, but sensitivity we cannot feel. So if you feel the sensitivity, it is not at all sensitivity. Then it again takes the role of the sensation.
The experience,
So all experience is the sensation,
sensation, not the sense.
not the sensitivity. Sensitivity is the base. There is no necessity.
Okay. Maybe it's beyond experience and
All experience are only the sensation. But we can infer. For example, the sensitivity is there in our hand. The sensitivity becomes hot at one time, cold at another time. We can feel only the hot and cold. The sensitivity of the hand we cannot feel. It is silent. It is whenever it comes from the expression alone we can feel. So if you feel something, it is also another kind of sensation. For example, if you are able to feel your hand itself, it is another kind of sensation. It is not the real sensitivity. For example, whenever we are here, for example, one day we have some fever. The total body is feverish and painful. And we feel our body in a perfect way. But the fear has gone, the pain has gone. We cannot even feel our body itself. We are unconscious of our body. For example, we may say even the body itself I can feel. But for example, we have we have 10 fingers in our hand. Can you feel the 10 fingers one by one? Nobody can feel. If you want to feel the finger, you can concentrate and vibrate, then only you can feel the finger itself. Otherwise, everything is unconscious. Even though the original state of our consciousness in the form of unconsciousness, the awareness keeps itself in the unconscious state. But whenever it expresses, it takes a state of consciousness. So the consciousness alone we can feel. But in the basic structure of our consciousness, it keeps itself in the unconscious state.
but sir, some people explains about bliss and that which is beyond our mind and matter.
No, it comes only through our body system alone. Even with the help of the body alone, we can have the bliss consciousness or anything, but we may attribute it later to the Atma or any basic sensitivity, but it is the expression of the something through the nervous system of our body. For example, there are many persons, they are having some experience, they can simply go away from the body and return to the body. So whenever you get away from the body and you keep yourself in the astral body, you don't have any experience, even the bliss consciousness itself. But whenever you return to the body alone, then you will have all the experience. Even the bliss consciousness also happens whenever you are having some body. Otherwise, no experience will be there. So even the bliss consciousness can be expressed only in the nervous system of our body. So, for example, if you have the bliss consciousness for a more than a limited period, you will have some collapse in the body system. You will be, your nervous system will be brought down. As because it is related to our body, then only it affects the body itself. But if it is in a milder level, it may help the health of the body itself. But it goes beyond some limit, it will destroy the body itself. So if it has no connection with the body, then it will be, it will not create any disturbance to the body.
Started reading your books, Aya, I found this understanding to be a real breakthrough understanding that all experiences are based on the body. Because even in my spiritual journey, I was looking for an experience which is beyond the body and the mind. And such a seeking happens to many seekers in their spiritual journey. And once I clearly understood that all experiences are basically bodily experiences, howsoever high it might be, then my seeking for higher experiences or blissful experiences simply vanished in the face of that understanding. A few words on that.
So that is the nature of all experiences. We have to know it like that. Whether a few words or huge words, the matter is the same. All experiences are related to our body. We have some experience in the nervous system and we will have some chemical reaction in the body. Otherwise, we will not call it as an experience. Whatever we will have in the form of experience, it must have some relationship with our body and our nervous system and some chemical change in our body. So then only we can have it as an experience. If we don't have any reaction in our body, don't we have any reaction in our nervous system, we cannot name it as an experience. So, for example, the case when we come away from the physical body, we will not have such kind of any experience. So whenever we re-enter into the body alone, then only we can have all those experiences. Otherwise we cannot have any experience. We can have some idea, but our mind is functioning with sensory, without the helping of our sensory organ, we can, because the senses are in the astral body, but the sensory organs are in the physical body. Without the help of the sensory organ, we cannot have any feeling. We cannot have any good or bad feelings. But even in the bliss consciousness itself, it gives some chemical change in our body and creates some vibration in the nervous system. Then only we can feel something. Otherwise we cannot have any feeling. Pain, pressure, anything will not be there in the psychological body.
But I was under the impression that such blissful experiences happen simply in the consciousness level. It has got nothing to do with. I was under that impression earlier. So that's why I found this understanding to be a breakthrough on my ear.
Is it not possible to be as pure awareness?
So here, everything is created by the awareness itself. So whatever is created by awareness, why should we not take it as the awareness itself? So all consciousness is the product of the awareness itself. But we think when some good emotion comes, we catch hold of something. When some bad emotions comes, we want to be free from that. Then only we differentiate in the superficial level. But actually everything is the creation of awareness system. Then we have to take everything as one. Then only we are taking the awareness as a main thing. So here we cannot conscious of the awareness system. Awareness is the base. From that everything comes. But whatever comes in the external, in the superficial level, it is only consciousness. That we know only our consciousness, but we cannot conscious of the awareness.
enlightenment, even that stage, or you may call that is not a stage also, okay. So even that enlightenment is also an experience.
So according to me, enlightenment is an understanding. Some intellectual understanding is enlightenment. But the liberation is different. We have to differentiate the enlightenment and liberation. Liberation is something different and the enlightenment is something different. The enlightenment is just an understanding. And the liberation is a happening. So actually whatever we are having in our consciousness comes and disappears. So that is the natural functioning of our mind. So that is the liberated condition, liberated state of our mind. So all liberation is related to our mind, not related to the Atma or anything, or awareness or anything. So it is related to our consciousness, related to our mind. So the mind can be liberated. So liberation related to the mind. So the binding, the bondage and liberation is related to the mind. So when you catch hold of anything, when you design something, I want to be this or that, then you are putting some boundary to the natural functioning of our mind. When you consciously giving some boundary, some limitation, when you put some restriction to the natural functioning of our mind, then you are creating bondage. So here, bondage and liberation are related to the mind. So actually the natural state of our mind is in the liberated state. But because we think we have some work in the liberation, we are having some work in the mind. So if we understand we have no work, the understanding that we have no work in the psychological state, in the mind, that the very understanding is known as enlightenment. So this understanding alone gives you the way for liberation. Other kind of understanding will not give you the way. So what is the way, what is the understanding which will give way for liberation, that alone can be considered as understanding or enlightenment. There are many kind of understanding, but this understanding alone can give you the way for liberation. Because if you have any work, if you think we have some work in the mind, then we are disturbing some problem we are creating some problem, we are creating some bondage, we are creating some restriction in our mind. So in the other way, many people are using the word surrender. By the way of surrender, we place everything in the hands of God. So hereby we are indirectly coming to the same state. Thereby we are also placing everything in the hands of God means we are not taking any responsibility on our hand. So if it is taken in a psychological way, then we are not disturbing anything on our way. So both are same. The surrender and the enlightenment are same. But liberation is different. And the surrender is intellectual and the enlightenment is also intellectual. But the happening after the enlightenment or surrender is different. So that is the natural state that we cannot describe. So whatever comes will go away. That is the natural sequence of the mind. That we can feel. We cannot have an idea about that. Whatever comes will go. That we can see, we can understand, we can go along with that.
So then we can experience freedom.
Oh, then definitely. But it is not a fixed state.
Of course. Is there will be mind still there or?
Let it be, mind is there, but it is when a flowing state. For example, we can differentiate a pond and a river. The pond is a stagnant water, but the river is a flowing water. The liberation is just like a flowing water. Whatever comes is going, but it is still part of the mind. The mind alone is functioning, the mind alone is flowing. It is part of the mind itself. But if you may imagine something beyond mind, there is nothing like that. You may imagine like that, but everything is within the mind. But the stagnation may be there, but the flowing also may be there. If it is in the flowing state, it is a liberated state. If it is having some stagnation, then we are having some boundary and bondage, then it is functioning with bondage. Otherwise, it is in the flowing state, or liberated mind, or liberated state.
So we perform some actions which are considered to be bad, and some actions which are considered to be good, and the better deeds. So how does that psychological world influences our mundane actions, and how to correct them, if at all we have to correct them?
So actually, our mind is just like a mirror. Many images may fall. Whatever the mind, the mirror faces, some images may be there. Some reflection may be there. We can make use of the images to do something in the external world. For example, you see the mirror and you can combing your head and you shaving your face. That you can do. But you should not do anything with the images. The images is just like meaningless. Some comes, some goes. You need not correct the images, but you can make use of the images. But in this way, the real world is the external world is the real world, but the psychological world is the imaginary world. We can make use of the imaginary world in help of the psychological, physical world. Physically, we can make use of our images. The good and bad is in the world, but there is no good. We cannot name it as good and bad in the psychological world. It may appear. Something may be bad, something may be good, it may be like that. But everything is the image, it just comes and disappears. If you find fault with the images, then it is unnecessary thing. But at the same time, in the external world is concerned, there is good and bad, we have to do the good and we should not do the bad. For that we can make use of our mind, we can make use of the images of the mirror. And that the meaning is that we have to attend to the world, attend to the work, but we need not attend to the images. We can make use of that, but we should not correct the images.
Let it be as it is, the images. With another words, it means let the images be as they are.
Yeah.
Okay. Now and then I have some contractions in the brain, and for me it's not possible to let it be as it is in that moment.
So here, our understanding, our conclusion is that you have no work here.
Yeah.
But in spite of your understanding, if you do something against your understanding, then it cannot be considered as your work. It is the unconscious work, because it is beyond your conscious command. Because if you command, you will command that you will not find any work. So in spite of your understanding, if you have any work psychologically, that means it happens beyond your understanding. So whatever comes beyond your understanding, then you need not worry about that. So whatever comes without your conscious effort or anything, you have to take it as unconscious happening. So whether you struggle with your or not, let it be unconscious. Don't take the conscious responsibility for that.
Yes.
So whatever happened, because you are aware that you have no work there. So in spite of our understanding, if you find some work here,
Yeah.
it must have been taken place because beyond your understanding. So beyond yourself. So you have to take it as unconscious happening. When it is unconscious happening, that means don't take responsibility for that. What is?
Running away from the mind or escaping from the mind, escaping from the world. No, sometimes we use the words, some we hear the words. You are escaping from the world.
Escape from the world.
Escape.
Escaping
Yes.
from the world.
World.
Oh.
You are running away from the world.
Mm.
So, and you find so many excuses
Mm.
in the name of this not doing or in the name of psychological world. So, how to understand? Right understanding will be there. Actual understanding.
So here, the real understanding is only related to the psychological matter. So the physically escaping from the duty or anything is the escape itself. It is not a justifiable. For the beginners alone, for example, as a school student, the school student will go to the school without doing any work in the world because it is justified, because it takes some time. But afterwards you have to return to the world. After finishing the education, he has to return to the world. He will do something for the world. So in this way, if you select, if you to dismiss the world, if you get away from the world and doing some work psychologically or in the spiritual world, so only to return to the world, then only it is justified. Otherwise, your deviation from the world is not justified. But in the end, we have to be with the world. We should not be away from the world. For the beginners, we can select some, then only can have some concentration upon the work. Just like a student, we can have some work. But it is not necessary. But some persons it is necessary. But anyway, you have to return to the world. The world is real, the psychological world is unreal. But you have to give chance for the understanding of the psychological world. For that, for the time being, you may be free from the problems of the world. For the beginners, as a student, you can have some deviation from the world. But afterwards, you have to return to the world. Short period. they are going to school lifelong. There is no chance for returning to the world itself. So you have to finish the school education as early as possible. Then the real world alone is existing, not the psychological world. You have to get away from the psychological world as early as possible. You should not take the lifetime for your education. Yeah.
But some people tell this is not a real world because this is changing world. This is not a permanent.
But I cannot change my idea.
No. Just some clarification. Just for some clarification. And we should not have any confusion about it. So please, little elaborate it, because this world is not permanent. This is changing world. This is impermanent. So we must aim for a thing which is beyond these changes, beyond mind and matter. You know all these philosophies, of course.
Certain people may think this world alone is real, nothing more than this world is there, nothing is there more than this world. So for that people, we have to give some education like that. Don't rely upon this world. It is subject to change. So for that to loosen the grip of the world, we have to say like this. But actually, the real world is the real. For psychologically, for example, we have several emotions. But can we keep any of our emotion for a long time? It will go away. It is just like an expression, just like an explosion. Each and every emotion comes as an explosion. The next moment disappears. That is a natural case of our psychological world. But at the same time, for example, you are building a house, beautiful house with all effort for 1 or 2 years and constructed a house. If you think it will not be ever, if you think like that, when after finishing the house, the house will gone away. If you think like that, we cannot live in this world. So for the time being, it is like that. It will be there for several years or something. But the psychological world is not so. Psychological world is just like writing upon the water. You need not correct anything. You may write to your name with some spelling mistake. You need not wipe out the spelling and rewrite for a correct word. Whenever you write, the next moment it will be away. You need not correct any spelling mistake. It will be away naturally. But the external world is not so. It is a concrete world. Even though it may go away in certain period, after certain period, it will also vanish. But for the time being, we have to take it as a concrete world, as a real world. But the psychological world is just like writing upon the water. It will not be a permanent one. So that alone, but here, even though when some tree or man or woman, we can conceive everything only through the help of our mind. So the psychological structure is false, but the physical aspect of any object is real. So that alone, each and every object consists of psychological and physical. The psychological aspect alone is false. The psychological aspect of an object alone is unreal. But the physical aspect is real. That we have to take into account.
So isn't it energy or consciousness or however we call it, base of everything? So of every thought, every feeling, of every matter, all in different vibrations. That is all what is dividing, what is making the difference. The way, how it vibrates. So, scientific way, as they're looking now, or seeing the matter, there is actually nothing there. Same nothing as in the thoughts and feelings.
So here we have to differentiate what is consciousness and matter.
Yeah, it is actually the same. Consciousness makes the matter or experience the matter. It's experience in itself. Consciousness experience itself in the form of matter or thoughts or feelings, I would think.
So that is one way. In another way, for example, this is a matter, this is a cell phone. It won't aware of itself. It will have any consciousness for itself. But at the same time, if I have a wound here, if I want to know this cell phone, either I have to touch this or I have to see this. Then only the matter will be there. So with the help of our sensory organ alone, we can hold it. Otherwise, this is not there. For in this way, I have a wound here. It is painful. I need not have the pain of wound only by seeing the wound or touching the wound. Seeing and touching is not necessary. The wound itself reveals itself. That is self-expression. But what is having the self-expression as for existence is known as consciousness. The other thing is matter. So the cell phone does not have any consciousness. So, but the sensory things, what we feel, what we know through the experience, it creates some consciousness for its existence, some self-evident expression it is having. So whatever having self-evident expression is known as the consciousness, or that is the truth. All consciousness has the root behind it, the awareness. But we cannot feel the awareness, but we can feel the expression in the form of consciousness. So the consciousness itself is according to ourselves, the consciousness alone is the real thing. but it has some change. It moment by moment it changes itself. It disappears itself. We need not create any order in the consciousness. But everything comes, but it is enough if you understand everything comes from the awareness itself. That itself is enough. And we need not take the consciousness itself is real. We need not worry about that. So sometimes it may be there, sometimes it may disappear. So the appearance and disappearance is related to the consciousness. But behind that, the awareness may be there. But we don't mind that. There is no necessity. The awareness does not have a major role, even though this as a substratum, it keeps the major role. But in the conscious level, it does not have any role. We need not conscious of our awareness, but we know only the existence. We know only the consciousness alone. But in the consciousness alone, we must have some arrangement. And here, if you don't mind your consciousness, it will have some flow. Because no consciousness will keep a stable state. It is in a flowing state. So we need not worry about the order. We need not create any order in the consciousness. But in the external world is different. The external world is a physical world. There we can, but basically everything comes from the awareness. That's a different thing. But what we feel is only the consciousness. Through our psychological expression or physical expression, we can feel. But in the external world is concerned, we have to consider it as a matter. Only material objects. And in the material objects, we can, to the possible extent, we can make an order.
So, for my really clarity, coming back to this wound thing, what you told, and the phone in compartment, that would be equal, consciousness would be equal nervous system, because what is aware of this are the nerves. Nerves are receiving, he is receiving something, hey, here is some damage. Is receiving and making a contraction, and we feel it as a pain. The feeling of pain is here. So that would mean the consciousness is equal the nervous system, isn't it so?
So whatever it be, we feel something.
Yeah.
It expresses itself in some way.
Yeah.
The other thing, the cell phone does not express itself. We feel it by touching this,
Yes.
or we feel it by seeing this.
Yes. Yes.
But we can feel the wound, not seeing that, not touching that.
Yes.
In spite of without touching it, without seeing it, it has some evidently self-evident nature.
Yes.
It expresses itself.
Yes.
That alone is known as the consciousness. What all having the self-expression nature is known as consciousness.
Yeah.
Without the help of other thing, it exists itself. It expresses itself.
Yes. No, yeah, but when eyes are open, again, when I see this thing, or touching, or eyes are open, again the nerves, again same system, receive that. Only I make differentiation. I telling this is me, my body, and this is something different from me, separate from me. This is what happens psychologically. So I here distinguish me and not me. But actually, this is an artificial boundary.
So here, the expression, the natural expression is different, and we understanding the particular with the help of a thought is different. For example, when I touch this, we think I am touching the cell phone. But actually, we are not feeling the cell phone. We are feeling the touch feeling of is in our hand, not in the cell phone.
Yeah.
The touch feeling is in our hand,
Yes.
but we think I am touching the cell phone. I am not saying that I am feeling my hand. I am feeling the cell phone.
Yes.
That is the particulars given by our thought.
Yes.
But here, the wound is expressed itself. just like the touch feeling is happening in the finger, the wound is having its own expression.
Yes.
So,
In the brain.
In the brain. We need not have any more particulars. When we associate our particulars, then through this touch feeling, I say, I am not saying that this is the feeling of my hand.
Yeah.
I may say this is the feeling of the cell phone.
Yes.
So the particulars comes.
Yeah.
Here the particulars is not having some indirect way. In a direct way it says, I am feeling the wound itself.
Maybe, sir, excuse me. Maybe these are 3 levels of cognizing the thing, perceiving the thing, and actually feeling the sensation part. So, maybe you are telling, sir, about the sensation and reaction parts. And she is speaking from the point of perception and cognitive parts.
No, cognitive part is a secondary aspect. The sensation is the primary aspect. Because we feel, when I touch here, we can feel something.
Exactly, you are right, sir.
But we think that we are touching the cell phone. So the cognitive parts comes. But in the case of a wound, there is no, if you touch it here through other hand, then the cognitive part is necessary. But the cognitive part is not necessary if it reveals itself.
You are right, sir. But in the mind, if I register my cell phone and all its features without touching and seeing, if I awaken my cognitive part and my perceiving thing, I can definitely feel without touching, without seeing, because it is already in my cognition, in my memory, in my knowledge. So when it is there in my knowledge, in my conscious mind or subconscious mind, so I can perceive it as clearly as I am touching it. I can not only sensible, but also I can experience each aspect of that cell phone because it's already recorded in my memory. That is, I can perceive it and I can evaluate it also. So sensory is not at all always necessary for a cognitive thing. So when we understand these 4 levels of cognition, perception, sensation and reaction, so it is the knowledge which we store in our subconscious or deep unconscious minds. That is the very root cause for all our emotions, all our judgments, all our sensory feelings. And because of that sensory feelings, we react, we judge, we come to conclusions, and we act in the actual worlds. So to me, when we are speaking about these conscious sensory aspects, sensory functions of the mind, we have to link it up with our cognitive knowledge and the functions of the perception and judgments also. So we cannot separate all these things, I think.
Okay.
No, it's okay.
Okay.